If you have ever driven on I-95, or honestly any major highway in this country, I need you to stop scrolling for the next few minutes, because something changed this year that almost nobody is talking about, and it could cost you a lot more than a simple ticket. I'm talking about real fines, higher insurance premiums, and in some cases, rules so specific that even careful, experienced drivers are getting caught off guard without realizing they did anything wrong. One of these changes alone caught more than 10,000 vehicles in just a few days, and I'll show you exactly which one in a moment. Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you are going to know exactly what changed, why it changed, and what you personally need to watch for the next time you get behind the wheel, whether that's a quick trip across town or a long drive to see the grandkids this summer. My name is Marcus. This is Marcus USA, and if you have not subscribed yet, now is a great time to do that, because we cover updates like this every single week, and most of them never make the evening news. All right, let's get into it. I-95 is the busiest interstate in the entire country. It runs from Miami all the way up through Maine to the Canadian border, cutting through more than a dozen states along the way. Millions of people use this highway every single day, whether they're commuting to work, hauling freight, or just driving up the coast to visit family for the weekend. Because so many people drive it every single day, it has become something of a testing ground for new laws and new enforcement technology. When something works on I-95, whether that's a new camera system or a new type of law, it tends to show up on other highways within a year or two. Lawmakers in other states watch what happens here closely, and if a program reduces crashes or brings in enough revenue to justify the cost, it gets copied fast. So even if you never set foot near this particular road, what happens here is worth paying attention to, because there is a very good chance a version of it is coming to a highway near you, if it has not already arrived. Think of I-95 as the preview of what's coming to your own state, sometimes months before your local news even mentions it. Let's start with the change that has caught the most drivers off guard, and it happened in Delaware. Back in early May of this year, Delaware's Department of Transportation switched on a new speed camera in a work zone on northbound I-95 in an area called Churchman's Marsh, near Wilmington. This is tied to a bridge rehabilitation project that is expected to run into next year. The state chose this stretch of road specifically because it has seen a rise in crashes since construction began, and officials wanted a way to slow drivers down without needing an officer standing in harm's way right next to moving traffic. Now here is the part that matters most. For the first 3 weeks, the camera was live, but it was only sending out warning letters. No fines, no penalty, just a heads up in the mail letting people know the camera was there. That warning period ended in the back half of May, and now the fines are real and they are being issued every single day. In that work zone, the posted limit is 55 miles per hour. If you get caught going 11 miles per hour or more over that limit, meaning 66 or faster, you get a base fine of $20, plus an extra $1 for every mile per hour over the posted limit, and then additional fees on top of that. Once everything is added up, a driver going 66 in that zone ends up owing somewhere around $118. And if you are going faster than that, the number climbs quickly. Someone caught going 100 miles an hour in that zone is looking at several $100s once all the fees are added in. During just the first few days that camera was active, even while it was still only issuing warnings, the state recorded more than 10,000 vehicles going 11 miles per hour or more over the limit. 39 vehicles were caught going over 100 miles per hour, and the fastest vehicle recorded was doing 139 miles per hour in a 55 mile per hour work zone. Let that sink in for a second. That is more than double the posted limit in a stretch of road where construction crews are actually standing and working. Here is something important to understand about how these tickets work, because it surprises a lot of people. This is a civil citation, not a criminal one, and it does not get sent to whoever was actually driving the car at the time. It gets sent to whoever the vehicle is registered to. There is no officer standing on the side of the road. There is no traffic stop. There is no conversation, no chance to explain yourself in the moment. A camera captures your license plate, a person on the other end reviews the image to confirm the violation, and a notice shows up in your mailbox a week or two later. Because it is treated as a civil penalty in Delaware, it typically will not add points to your license, and it will not show up as a moving violation on your driving record. That part is actually good news. But it also means there is very little room to argue your way out of it, because there was no officer there to begin with, no dash cam conversation, nothing to dispute except the photo itself. And this is not new for Delaware either. A similar camera near a different stretch of I-95, close to the Route 896 interchange, has been active since 2024, and it has issued more than 400,000 citations, while cutting average speeds through that area by roughly 10%. That is a meaningful drop when you consider how much that reduces the force of impact in a crash. Other states, including Maryland, Kentucky, and a handful of others, have either launched or are actively piloting similar work zone camera programs right now. So if you are driving through any construction zone on a major highway this year, just assume there might be a camera watching, because this trend is only moving in one direction, and it is not slowing down anytime soon. The second change involves your phone, and honestly, I think it is a bigger deal than most people realize, because it changes something that a lot of us have done without thinking twice. Pennsylvania has a law called Paul Miller's Law, named after a young man who was killed by a distracted driver back in 2010. His family spent years pushing for this law to become reality, and it finally did. This law technically took effect back in the middle of 2025, but for the first full year, police could only issue written warnings if they caught someone holding a phone while driving. That warning period ended in early June of this year. Now, holding a phone while driving in Pennsylvania is what is called a primary offense, which means an officer can pull you over for that alone, without needing any other reason at all. You do not have to be speeding, weaving, or doing anything else wrong. Simply holding the phone in your hand while the car is in motion is enough. The fine itself starts at $50, but once you add court costs and other fees, most drivers end up paying somewhere between $125 and $200 total for a single violation. Here is the detail that catches people off guard the most, and I want you to really pay attention to this one. The law defines driving in a way that includes moments when your car is stopped at a red light, at a stop sign, or sitting still in traffic. So if you are sitting at a red light in Philadelphia, waiting for the light to turn green, and you glance down to check a text message, that is still a ticketable offense under this law. Your car does not have to be moving for the violation to apply. A lot of drivers assume that if they are stopped, the rules relax a little. Under this law, they do not. For most regular drivers, this violation will not add points to your license, and it will not automatically be treated as a major flagged incident on paper. But here is the part that quietly costs people money down the road. Insurance companies do review your citation history when it comes time to renew your policy each year, and several major insurers have said publicly that they do factor handheld device tickets into how they assess your overall risk as a driver. That means your premium can go up when you renew, even though no points were ever officially added to your license. It is the kind of cost that shows up months later, and most people never connect it back to that one ticket. Pennsylvania now joins a growing list of states, including Florida, Ohio, California, New York, and New Jersey, where this kind of handheld phone enforcement is treated as a primary offense rather than something that only gets added onto another violation after the fact. The third change is one where most drivers assume they already know the rules, and honestly, that is exactly why it catches so many people off guard. I am talking about the move over law. Every state has required drivers to slow down or switch lanes when passing a stopped emergency vehicle for a long time now, and most of us learned that rule in driver's education decades ago. What is changing, state by state, is exactly who that protection covers, and the definition has quietly gotten a lot broader than most people realize. California's updated law, which took effect at the start of this year, now requires drivers to slow down or change lanes for any stopped vehicle showing hazard lights, flares, or warning triangles, not just police cars, ambulances, or tow trucks. That includes an everyday driver who has pulled over onto the shoulder because of a flat tire, or a family whose car started smoking on the side of the highway. Think about that for a second. A grandmother pulled over with a flat tire on the shoulder now has the same legal protection under this law as a police cruiser. Florida made a similar change back at the start of last year, and other states have similar proposals moving through their legislatures right now. So if your state has not expanded this law yet, there is a decent chance it will soon, and it is worth checking now rather than finding out the hard way. A lot of these updated laws are very specific about what counts as compliance, and this is where drivers get tripped up. Many require you to reduce your speed by roughly 20 miles per hour below the posted limit if you cannot safely change lanes away from the stopped vehicle. Simply tapping your brakes for a second and continuing on at close to the same speed usually does not meet that legal requirement, even if it feels like you did something. Fines for a move over violation typically start somewhere between $150 and $500 for a first offense. And in several states, if that violation actually leads to a crash, you can also be looking at a license suspension stacked right on top of the fine. Now, the fourth change is the one that is genuinely harder to plan around because it takes away a habit a lot of experienced drivers rely on without even thinking about it. It is called average speed enforcement, and it is already up and running in parts of Colorado, with more states watching closely to see how well it performs before deciding whether to adopt it themselves. Here is how it is different from a normal speed camera that you might already be used to seeing. Instead of one camera checking your speed at a single fixed spot, this system uses two cameras, one placed at the start of a stretch of road and one placed at the end. The system records the exact time your license plate passes each camera, calculates how long the trip between them took, and works out your average speed across that entire distance. If that average comes out high enough over the posted limit, a ticket gets mailed to the registered owner of the vehicle. Why does this matter so much more than a normal camera? Because the old trick that a lot of drivers rely on, easing off the gas right as they pass a visible camera and then speeding right back up once they're past it, simply does not work with this kind of system. There is no single point where slowing down for just a few seconds helps you, because the system is measuring your average speed across the entire stretch, start to finish. In Colorado, this technology is already active on a stretch of I-25 just north of Denver, and drivers who average 10 miles per hour or more over the posted limit are getting a $75 ticket sent directly to the registered owner of the vehicle with no license points attached, at least under the current rules. This kind of average speed enforcement has actually been used across parts of Europe for many years, with well-documented safety improvements to show for it. And now it is starting to spread here in the United States, one state at a time. Even if this exact system has not reached your state yet, it is worth knowing this technology exists, so you are not caught completely by surprise the first time you run into it somewhere unfamiliar. Quick pause before we move on, because if you're finding this useful, this is exactly the kind of thing we cover every week on this channel. So take 2 seconds and hit that subscribe button now while you're thinking about it. It genuinely helps this channel keep growing, and it means you won't miss the next one of these breakdowns. Okay, back to it. Because the last change is the one that really surprises people once they hear how it actually works, since it doesn't happen out on the highway at all. The fifth and final change does not happen out on the road at all. It happens the moment an officer runs your license plate, often before you even realize you have been pulled over for anything. A growing number of states now connect directly to insurance databases in real time, which means an officer can confirm whether your policy is currently active before they even walk up to your car window. No insurance card, no app, no paperwork required from you in the moment. States including Alabama, Texas, Georgia, Michigan, and Mississippi have had systems like this running for a while now, and more states are adding similar real-time verification systems every single year. Here is why this matters more than most people think it does at first. A coverage gap that might have gone completely unnoticed in the past, maybe a late payment you meant to catch up on, or an automatic renewal that quietly failed to process for some reason, can now be flagged the instant an officer checks your plate. That can happen during a routine traffic stop, or increasingly as you simply pass through a camera-monitored area with no stop involved at all. This is not just a one-time fine that you pay and move on from without a second thought. In most states, a lapse like that becomes a permanent mark on your insurance history, and that mark can affect your rates for years afterward, long after the original gap has been fixed. So let's bring all of this together, because I do not want to just leave you with a list of scary facts and no real plan. I want to leave you with something you can actually use starting today. Speed cameras in active highway work zones are spreading fast across the country, and they no longer come with the long, forgiving grace periods that drivers used to be able to count on. Handheld phone laws are shifting from a secondary offense to a primary one in more and more states every single year. And that shift now includes moments when your car is not even moving, like sitting at a red light. Move over, laws are quietly expanding to cover any stranded vehicle with its hazard lights on, not just official emergency responders. And a lot of drivers still do not know the exact speed reduction their own state now requires by law. Average speed enforcement is starting to remove the old trick of slowing down only near a visible camera. And real-time insurance verification means a coverage gap is no longer something you can quietly fix before anyone else notices it happened. None of this is meant to scare you away from driving, and it is definitely not meant to make you anxious every single time you get behind the wheel. That is not the point of this channel. It is meant to make sure you are not the person who finds out about a rule change by opening a surprise envelope a few weeks later, wondering what on earth happened and why the fine is so much higher than you expected. The most useful thing you can do this week is take 2 minutes to check your own state's Department of Transportation website for any recent updates to your local move-over law. Make sure your phone is genuinely set to do not disturb or hands-free mode before you even start the car, and double check that your insurance policy is active and fully paid up before any long trip you have planned this summer. Before you go, I really want to hear from you on this one. Which one of these 5 changes did you not know about until watching this video? Was it the phone law that applies even at a red light, or the move over rule now covering a stranded neighbor's car on the shoulder? Maybe it was the insurance check that happens before an officer even reaches your window. Whatever it was, drop it in the comments below, because I read every single one, and it genuinely helps me figure out what to cover in the next video. If you have a story about getting caught by one of these rules yourself, or a close call you want to warn other people about, share that too. This community has helped a lot of people avoid an expensive mistake just by talking about what happened to them. And if this video was helpful to you in any way, do me a favor and share it with someone who drives I-95 regularly, or someone you know who has a road trip coming up this summer. Send it to a family member who still thinks move-over laws only apply to police cars, or to a friend who admits they still glance at their phone at red lights. It genuinely could save them a fine they never saw coming, and a quick share only takes about 5 seconds. If you are new here, this is Marcus USA, and we break down updates exactly like this one every single week. The kind of thing that rarely makes the evening news but ends up affecting almost everyone who gets behind the wheel. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next one. Because trust me, there is always something new coming down the road, and I would rather you hear about it here first than in a letter from the DMV or a surprise charge on your insurance bill. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.